Launching rockets to space is a high-stakes, unforgiving business with razor-thin margins between success and failure. Here are some examples from recent history that reminds us of how tough this business can be and how we can learn from our mistakes. Today we will tell you about 5 rocket launches that went horribly wrong. But before starting the video, please subscribe to the channel and click on the notification icon so you will get notified when we upload the next video. 5. Florida, December 6, 1957. The Vanguard TV-3 was the first attempt by the United States to get a satellite into orbit around the planet. Just 2 seconds after launch, the rocket began to lose thrust, fell back onto the launch pad, and exploded after the fuel tanks ruptured. This led to serious damage across the launch pad. An investigation was unable to determine the exact cause of the failure, but it is believed that there was a malfunction of the fuel system. 4. China, February 15, 1996. Intelsat 708 was a telecommunications satellite built by the American company Space Systems, Laurel for Intelsat. It was destroyed on the 15th of February 1996 when the Long March 3B launch vehicle failed while being launched from the Xichang Satellite Launch Center in China. The launch vehicle veered off course immediately after liftoff and struck a nearby village, officially killing at least 6 people. In 1992 and 1993, Space Systems Laurel received licenses from the United States Department of State to launch Intelsat satellites on Chinese rockets. At that time, satellite components were still under International Traffic in Arms Regulations, ITAR. They would be transferred in stages to the US Department of Commerce between 1992 and 1996. The Intelsat 708 satellite was to be launched into geostationary orbit aboard a Long March 3B launch vehicle. On the 15th of February 1996, the Long March 3B launch vehicle failed during launch, veering off course immediately after liftoff and crashing into a village near the launch site, probably Mailin Village. An enormous explosion destroyed most of the rocket and killed an unknown number of inhabitants. The nature and extent of the damage remain a subject of dispute. The Chinese government, through its official Xinhua news agency, reported that 6 people were killed and 57 injured. American estimates suggest that anywhere between 200 and 500 people might have been killed in the crash. Dozens, if not hundreds, of people were seen to gather outside the centre's main gate near the crash site the night before launch. When reporters were being taken away from the site, they found that most buildings had sustained serious damage or had been flattened completely. Some eyewitnesses were noted as having seen dozens of ambulances and many flatbed trucks loaded with what could have been human remains, being taken to the local hospital. Bruce Campbell of Astrotech and other American eyewitnesses in Xichang reported that the satellite, post-crash, was surprisingly intact, along with the opinion that the official death toll only reflects those in the military who were caught by the disaster and not the civilian population. In the years to follow, the village that used to border the launch center has vanished with little trace it ever existed. However, Chen Lan, writing in the Space Review, later said the total population of the village was under 1,000 and that most, if not all, of the population had been evacuated before launch, making it very unlikely that there were hundreds of deaths. 3. Florida, January 17, 1997. GPS IIR-1 was the first block IIR GPS satellite to be launched and would have operated as part of the United States Air Force Global Positioning System. That is, if it didn't absolutely explode 13 seconds after launch. An investigation found that a crack in the casing of the No. 2 solid rocket motor formed at T+6 seconds, leading to issues that ultimately forced the manual destruct command to kick in at 1,600 feet in the air. Residents of the surrounding area were asked to stay indoors due to toxic vapors released from the crash, but nobody was killed. 2. Russia, July 1, 2013. A Russian rocket crash yesterday, July 1st, was likely caused by an emergency shutdown of the booster's engines 17 seconds into the flight, according to news reports. The unmanned Russian Proton M rocket launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, 10:38 p.m. EDT, 2:38 a.m. GMT. The crash of the 17-story booster destroyed 3 onboard navigation satellites, which were worth almost $200 million. Video of the rocket crash from Russian state-run Rossiya 24 television shows the vehicle veering off course shortly after liftoff and then breaking apart in midair and exploding in a fiery blaze once it hit the ground. The rocket was carrying 600 tons of highly toxic heptyl, amyl and kerosene fuel, which was spilled when the booster was destroyed, Russian news service RIA Novosti reported. The burning fuel gives off a poisonous smoke, but officials said that the cloud was being partially contained by rain at the launch site. People in the nearby town of Baikonur, 36 miles, 60 kilometers away, were told to stay home with their windows closed and public shops and cafeterias were closed, Kazakh Interior Minister Kalmuk Kambet Kazimov said, according to Reuters. The impact occurred in a safe area that was evacuated for the launch, and all personnel are reported to be unharmed, wrote officials at International Launch Services, which markets the Proton rocket to commercial satellite operators, in a statement. From early reports, there was no damage to either launch pad 39 or 24 near the impact area. There was only minor damage to nearby buildings. During the accident, launch personnel were safe in bunkers, Reuters reported. The Proton M rocket was insured for 6 billion rubles, $182 million, with a Russian insurance center, according to RIA Novosti. A Russian Proton rocket begins to lift off shortly before crashing after a failed launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on July 2, 2013 local time. The 3 satellites on board the rocket were intended to join the GLONASS navigation network, Russia's counterpart to the United States' GPS system. GLONASS, however, has been plagued with problems, including the loss of 3 satellites in December 2010, when another Proton rocket failed during launch. And during a fraud investigation last year, the GLONASS network's chief designer was dismissed amid corruption and embezzlement accusations. An investigation into yesterday's accident is underway, but early reports suggest a problem in the rocket's engine or guidance system may have caused the emergency engine shutdown, Reuters reported. This was the 5th major Proton rocket launch failure since December 2010, with the most recent in December 2012, when a Proton booster launched a telecommunications satellite into the wrong orbit. After that accident, Proton rockets were grounded until March. Upon returning to flight, 3 Protons launched successfully before yesterday's crash. This latest incident will likely spur a more in-depth investigation into the root cause of the spate of failures before any more Protons fly. The Russian Federal Space Agency, Roscosmos, has set up a special commission to determine the cause of the failure, and telemetry is currently being amassed and processed, International Launch Services officials wrote. 1. Virginia, October 28, 2014. An unmanned Antares rocket carrying a space capsule loaded with supplies for the International Space Station exploded in a massive fireball 6 seconds after liftoff Tuesday afternoon, October 28, 2014, from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Wallops Island, Virginia. The video above shows a 14-story rocket faltering just after its launch at 6:22 p.m. EDT, then exploding before falling back onto the launch pad with a second larger explosion. No one was hurt, but the rocket itself was a total loss, and the Wallops launch pad appears to have been extensively damaged. NASA said the damage was limited to the south end of Wallops Island. A broadcaster on NASA TV said as the event occurred, launch team, be advised, remain at your consoles. A mishap has occurred at Pad 0A. There is no indication there is personnel in danger. Although we do have significant property damage and significant vehicle damage, NASA officials say the space agency is currently trying to determine what caused the explosion and the extent of the damage. The Antares rocket was built under contract with Orbital Sciences general manager Frank Culbertson. The rocket itself was worth a little over $200 million. It was partially insured. This price does not include the damage to the launch facility itself. Culbertson said the first stage of the rocket was fueled with liquid oxygen and kerosene, most of which is expected to have burned off fairly quickly. The second stage is powered by a solid propellant that may have burned in this accident. The spacecraft also carried toxic hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide. That is why NASA is warning the public not to go souvenir hunting under these circumstances. NASA said in a press conference on the evening of October 28th that if strange debris is found, members of the public should not touch or go near it. Instead, call an incident response team, +1 757 824 1295. According to the Baltimore Sun, Orbital Sciences, headquartered in Fairfax County, Virginia, was one of 2 companies hired by NASA to fly cargo to the station after the agency retired the space shuttles. The flight Tuesday was to be the 3rd of 8 under a $1.9 billion contract. The second US supply line to the station is run by Space Exploration Technologies, or SpaceX. The California-based company is preparing for its 4th flight on December the 9th under a separate $1.6 billion NASA contract. NASA TV broadcast live the spectacular failure on Tuesday, October 28, 2014, of Orbital Sciences' Antares rocket. The rocket had been bound for the International Space Station, loaded with supplies, when it exploded seconds after launch and fell back to Earth with a second, more powerful explosion. No casualties reported at this time, but there appears to be extensive damage. Do let us know in the comments below which one of them is the worst according to you. Thanks for watching.